first time back in a couple of weeks, he's fastest in practice.
Yeah, was had the only time in the 21.5s for tonight. For once, expect to be a hot one here at Richmond. But let's recap once again. For those tuning in, it was a barn burner at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Charlotte Oval just a few weeks ago on May 18th. The last time the Cup Series at the track, it was Dan West Jr. coming away with the victory over Seth Frazier by a tenth of a second, had the fastest laps and the most laps led. But that race could have went any direction. Several different leaders, 9 to be exact, Greg.
Yeah, it was a wild race 2 weeks ago, and Seth Frazier was knocking on the door. Dan West Jr. coming away with the victory, but don't take away from that 32 car. He knows how to get around many of these racetracks, and Richmond is one of those that falls kind of into his wheelhouse, Justin. He's a short track driver, both in real life and on the iRacing circuit. The Northwest Tour Super Late Model champion this season in the Northwest. So Seth Frazier knows how to get it done on the short tracks. Keep an eye on that number 32 car, trying to build some momentum after that runner-up last week and looking to try to get one spot up on the 55 of West Jr. tonight.
You mentioned the point standings. West Jr., the points leader by 57 points entering tonight for West Racing. Next Gen Racing's Jeff Stabnell second with Brightsman, Chris White, Seth Frazier inside the top 5. They're separated by 79 points. Also tied up in that grouping as well, Stephen Paulison, who's been quietly having a solid season on the campaign. Overall, though, drivers are slowly but surely as the season progresses going to be focusing on trying to make sure they're good on wins and good on points to make the postseason.
Yeah, the more and more the regular season ticks away, the more and more you're going to see drivers, like you mentioned, focusing on getting into the postseason. And for some drivers, that'll be trying to steal a win. We saw it at Michigan a few weeks ago. Bruce Lee Weaver stealing the win at Michigan with a fuel mileage gamble that paid off. So it can be done. Putting Bruce Lee Weaver in the postseason, and several drivers still looking to try to punch that ticket now and not have to fall back on the points later.
Indeed, so far this season, just 6 different winners. Brightsman, West Jr., Stabnell, Frazier, Bruce Lee Weaver, all inside the top 15 of the points entering tonight's race. Drivers meeting still underway here at Richmond Raceway. Let's bring in Chris Nunn first things first for tonight's action. Chris, your thoughts on what we should see this evening here at this racetrack?
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me along. My first Northwest Racing Series event, and it's Richmond Raceway. It's a small, less than a mile. It's conducive to close racing. I have a feeling by the time this race is over, we're going to see. I'm gonna predict a photo finish. That's what I'm gonna predict. But Richmond Raceway, like I said, it's conducive to very, very close quarters racing. I call it a circle track steel cage match here, and I have a feeling we're not going to see anything less than that.
Indeed, and now also want to bring in our pit row reporter as well for tonight's action. Wesley Outland with tons of experience in real life in NASCAR competition. Getting all set to go from Richmond, Wesley. What do you expect to see first things first?
Well, a good Monday evening to everybody out there in the world of LSR TV. This is going to be a very, very unique race. Obviously, another thing that will be unique will be the pit entrance and pit exit. When these drivers come for green flag pit stops, I really think the scenarios are going to be very, very interesting. The way they have to drop back onto the bottom of the apron, going into turn number 3, transition all the way around the racetrack, and then, of course, hit their pit stalls. Do not make any mistakes. Don't make any penalties. And whoever can do that on the pit stops tonight will be on top as long as they can conclude their successes on the racetrack. I'll cover that action tonight here at Richmond on Pit Road.
Go to you a lot of times tonight, absolutely, especially with the nature of Richmond. Qualifying is underway, and as you can tell, Greg, a cloud is above the track. It's already gone down 2 degrees from 111 to 109 in the span of 5 minutes.
And that is showing on the times, Justin, because in practice, we only saw a couple of drivers get into the 21 6-second bracket. Right now, top of the charts is Dan West Jr. in number 55, 21.660, the only driver in the 6s. But Justin, a couple of notes for Dan West Jr. He did not get any practice in that final practice session before qualifying. The qualifying lap that he just set the top of the board was his first lap on track tonight. And I mean that because it was his first lap that he set that time. He did not get a time on the second lap as he pounded the wall off of turn number 2, and he's using the remaining time left in this qualifying session to get some practice in. But he's on top of the charts right now at a 21.60. Only 8 cars though so far have taken time, Justin, and West Junior on top of them all at a 21.60. Stephen O'Hare second with 21.839.
And this race tonight has a unique flair to it as well, though, Greg, where a lot of times the races have been in sync by a week or so, give or take, to official racing and what their track is. This week, we're at Richmond, where they haven't been at this track on the official service in about a month.
Yeah, it's a different strategy because normally drivers can get a couple practice runs in the official server, getting a couple races in here or there. Not the case here this week, as Richmond was a long time ago for the Class A Cup Series that runs on the iRacing server. So it will be interesting to see how these drivers react, having not been on this track in a Cup car in quite some time, other than a couple of practice sessions throughout the course of the week. Some of the drivers were in the Truck Series race on Thursday, and for some of them, including Caden Anderson, that's the only laps they have all week at Richmond, because Anderson, another one of those drivers who missed practice, but he was so strong in that truck race on Thursday.
Especially, it seemed, on the short run with that truck. Keep in mind, though, Truck Series for Northwest Racing Series action is an open set series. This is fixed set, where you have to adjust to what the setup feels for these respective cars. And for some of these machines, they've been slipping and sliding off a turn 2 especially. Even some of the big names, such as the 83 of Chris White.
Yeah, Chris White in the number 83, top of the charts right now. And remember, on Thursday night in the Truck Series, he was one of those drivers who was in the mix for the win at points, battling with Dan West Jr., Caden Anderson, Bill Ross Jr., and others. Chris White was one of those guys who was in the mix all day long. And Justin, that switch to Ford is really beginning to pay off for him, because ever since he made that switch to Ford, we're starting to see the Chris White of old. He's really starting to run consistently. It all started with that second place finish at Kansas, and since then Chris White has been on another level, contending for the win week in and week out.
It's like a newfound confidence, it seems, with him in that race car. Absolutely. Currently following along with Bruce Lee Weaver. He's already set his 2 qualifying laps, but we've also seen, though, 2 things. Well, he's at the bottom of the board in 16th now with Scott Mann with his first time. Second was all over the racetrack. Scott Mann has just completed his 2 laps, crashed into turn 1, however, still, though, up towards the front. And at this track position is very key.
Track position, very key. And Justin, I want to go back to Bruce Lee Weaver for just a second. First off, great looking ride on him this week, going with a retro midnight vibe there, if you will, the old Miller Genuine Draft Ford this week. But Justin, remember, Bruce Lee Weaver is locked into the postseason with that win at Michigan, so he can afford to use these middle stretch races going into the postseason as kind of a test session to try different things out for future reference. He doesn't have that concern of trying to get himself into the postseason. He has that win, getting the win at Michigan, so he's in. So he might be using the races from here until the postseason as more or less chances to try different things and not worry about consequences right now.
Make a very solid point, especially with the chance to take chances, rather. As we take a look at someone taking qualifying laps for their first times, they've let the track cool down a fair bit. Problem is, it was a 22.3 on the first lap for James Thurston in the 2 machine. Currently 19 total drivers have set times. He's currently the slowest of them. Second lap, though, a bit of a bobble off the corner. Moves it up to a 22 flat to get in front of Bruce Lee Weaver in qualifying. Now, as these drivers finish up their final moments of the session, what is expected to be a 25-car field for tonight, Greg? Your expectations for the green flag this evening?
I'm thinking it's going to be a lot like we saw on Thursday, Justin. By that, I mean track position is going to be key, because I got a feeling we're going to see a race like Thursday on the caution count. It was not good on Thursday. The amount of cautions that came out, especially in the second half of the race. We saw that long green flag stretch in the first half of the race, and we thought, okay, this race is going to go relatively quickly. Unfortunately, as the race wore on, the tempers began to run out, and we saw some incidents late in the race. And unfortunately, 200 laps, it's a hot track surface, cars are going to be slipping and sliding. I got a bad feeling that we might see something like that again. Seth Frazier, who is not in the field on Thursday, running the old Miller Lite American Special that Brad Keselowski, by the way, just drove to a win in the longest race in NASCAR history just this past Sunday in the Coca-Cola 600. So Seth Frazier, one of 2 Miller cars in the field tonight, sitting 5th right now. He's looking for a Richmond win, and this is one, again,
big hit for Stabnow. Stabnow had a blistering first qualifying lap and was tracking for a potential pole, but just snapped hard into the fence down the back straightaway. That is unfortunate for Stabnow, but does have the track position. So his qualifying run is done, Greg.
Yeah, he came home 4th on that first lap, snapped loose coming off of turn number 2, and fought it all the way down the backstretch before nosing up into the wall, almost to turn number 3. But fortunately for Stabnow, he did get the 4th position on the first lap. So in all actuality, he can just park it right there and be good. He'll get the backup off the trailer and be ready to go.
1 minute left in qualifying. No one else has made their way onto the track to take advantage of said minute here. Want to go over towards Wesley, who has an update on what just happened with Jeff.
Yeah, guys, I just was up and down virtual pit road and grabbed a word with Stabnow with 24. And he says that, I quote, "I hit the apron and the wall got in the way." The good news is everything will be fixed and ready to go for the feature coming up shortly here at Richmond.
That's the good thing when it comes to iRacing. The damage from qualifying doesn't cross over to your rearwheel car. You have essentially several potential backup cars for when the green flag flies for the race this evening. But qualifying just moments away from ending before we head towards the grid and before the cars roll out to said grid. Chris, your expectations tonight?
Well, right now it's looking like Chris White. I'm gonna peg him as the man to beat right now. He looked really good in his qualifying run, and we just had another driver set a time. James Vining went 18th quick with a time of 22.06. So Chris White's going to be my pick, but it's like I said earlier, it's going to be a closely contested race, and picking someone to win, man, it's just going to be like trying to play the lottery tonight.
Who's going to win the lottery odds this evening? We're about to find out from Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia, as we get ready to look at your starting grid. After an intense qualifying session, Chris White is your pole sitter for tonight's action with the 21.635. Scott Mann starts alongside him in row 1, with Dan West Jr. and Jeff Stabnow in row 2. Seth Frazier, Sean Brightsman in row 3, with Corey Walters, Stephen O'Hare in row 4. Kevin Smith and Bill Ross Jr. round out your top 10. Greg, you have P's 11 through 20.
John Ottenbacher is really starting to hit his stride lately and run more consistently. Rolls off 11th in the LSR TV Chevy Camaro with a new look for Carl Burke to his outside. Silver bullet vibes from the 53. Daryl Tidrick in the number 45. Looks like he may have switched manufacturers from Toyota over to Ford this week, kind of following in the footsteps of Chris White in the 45. To his outside, Ricky Bozer rolls off in the 14th position. Caden Anderson, another guy we're watching, Justin, because he was so strong in the trucks at Richmond. No practice. Goes out 15th to his outside, Gary Nichols in the number 8. The 31, Brad Carpenter, first time we've seen him in a long time, knows how to get it done. A winner on the Northwest Tour in the super late models at Iowa this winter, so knows how to get it done. He's running an Adam Petty paint scheme. James Vining hopefully has the cat locked away as he will roll off in the 18th position. Rounding out the top 20 are Dan Lowther and James Thurston.
Bursley Weaver, the last qualifier, with 21st, his starting position at 22-1 in qualifying. Paulson, Harris, Devin West, Cameron Doyle, all going on provisionals. Of note, though, West and Doyle both not in the pit lane, either or on the track for the start of today's race. 0.75 miles is the distance here at Richmond Raceway, the action track as they call it. It's brought a lot of exciting races, to say the very least, here at Richmond. and is expecting to have an exciting one this evening. You heard Chris Nunn's prediction for this evening. Greg, what's your prediction?
He talked about Chris White being the guy to watch, and he definitely showed in qualifying, but man, I'm keeping my eye on that guy starting directly behind him in third. Dan West Jr. led all 200 laps here on Thursday in the trucks and looked very strong once again in qualifying. Used that extra time for practice. I like that 55 rolling off in third. I think Dan West Jr. is the guy to beat today.
Wesley, your pick?
Oh my goodness, there's so many good contenders here. Man, I have to say, continue that trend for Dan West, that he picked up a win and keeping that momentum in that 55 car. So I would say my pick's Dan West in the 55. He's starting third.
Drivers all set to go here for the drop of the green flag at Richmond Raceway as we get all set to go for race number 12 of the 2020 Northwest Cup Series season. The Richmond Raceway 200 is about to get underway. Pace car is off. Chris White in control of the field in the Six Dogs car. He's off and away.
Oh, but he bobbled there. He missed a shift on the start. That's going to allow Scott Mann to get the lead and allow Dan West Jr. to come in. Whoa, almost in contact with Jeff Stabnow. Boy, that is not how Chris White wanted to start the day. Missing the shift on the initial start, giving the early lead to Scott Mann in the 90.
And caution already out of the back of the field. Gary Nichols, Brad Carpenter making contact as we are already under yellow, similar to what we seen in the truck race just a few days ago.
Yeah, both races here at Richmond getting started on a first lap yellow. So not the way these drivers wanted to start. And for Chris White, a chance maybe to get back in it, because you got to wonder if that's going to be weighing on his head, missing the shift after starting on the pole like that.
Yeah, that was a massive bobble, it seemed, on the gas. By the way, we apologize for a current ticker issue. We will work to rectify that issue during this caution flag period, as we're already under the yellow. With that bad start, though, that shuffles Scott Mann into first. Dan West Jr., Jeff Stabnow, White, and Brightsman round out the top 5. Interesting fact when it comes to the Toyotas, though. He was the only Toyota car, Brightsman, who started inside the top 10. 3 Toyotas total were in the race this evening, Greg.
Yeah, not a lot of Toyotas, something we're not used to seeing in this series. And one of the flag bearers for Toyota historically has been at 45 of Daryl Tidrick. He made the switch over to Ford tonight in the number 45 Ford Performance Mustang, so he's rolling in the 12th position. So interesting that some drivers switching away from Toyota that we've seen this season. Of course, Sean Brightsman ran the Chevy at Charlotte a couple weeks ago, had a good run going, but always good to see the bright purple Camry up there and in the top 5. We'll see how it goes through the rest of the race, but that's definitely interesting that there's so few Toyotas in the field tonight.
Neither cars involved in the caution flag took their fast repairs. We're under yellow from Richmond Raceway. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more action after this.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Let's get back underway as we get ready to try this again. Coming to 195 to go. Justin Prince, Greg Rentz, Chris Nunn, Wesley Outwin, all with you. Charles Wooden in the director's seat for this jam-packed broadcast booth and pit lane this evening. Scott Mann in control of the field after a massive tire spin for Chris White to start off the race. Bunched up the bottom line. We'll see how Mann handles it. Lead or now in control of the field. Pace car off. Man is away. Cleaner launch as we're back in our green.
Scott Mann, remember, he has missed a couple of races lately. First race back in a few weeks and leading the way. And you know this is exactly what he was looking for, to try to get out and lead laps early in his return. Not the way he was thinking it would go, though, with a caution on the first lap after being the benefactor of tire spin on the restart or the initial start, but he'll take it as he continues to lead. Our first official
turn
green
4.
lap.
Frazier hit into the grass. He slides to the infield. We stay green. That was after Chris White snapped loose coming off turn 4.
Boy, the 83 of Chris White, something is not happy with that car on race setup, because this is early on. He's got a lot of damage on the back of that 83 car. So the pole sitter, Chris White, in big trouble. And Seth Frazier, he now has a lot of work to do, as he's going to fall well outside the top 10. He'll be 14th, no, 18th once it's all settled down. And he now has to work his way through the field. Fortunately for the Miller Lite number 32, Justin, it's a long race.
And one thing I want to discuss here real quickly, Brand Chris, is it was talked about for the NASCAR race. They were expecting a lot of drivers to snap loose like we just seen for Frazier off turn 4. That didn't come to fruition. We're seeing an outcome to fruition now for the Northwest Cup Series tonight. Chris.
Sorry, I had a microphone issue there. Yeah, that turn 4 area, it seems like to be a big Bermuda Triangle there, as that's not the first driver I've seen snap loose coming off turn 4. I think that's going to be a prevalent issue throughout the race. I don't think that's going to be the last time we see that issue.
Currently taking a look at John Ottenbacher. He's gained 2 positions from the drop of the green flag after a decent fight with Anderson. He's already gone up 7 positions, but Wesley standing by in the pit lane.
Yeah, just checked with a crew member on Chris White's car. Chris White, the fast qualifier, says, Wesley, I've got a wicked car right now. It's got a handling issue on the right rear. It's wicked loose. I don't know why. I also grabbed Frazier's crew, spoke with him. He said, I bounced off the wall. I'm okay. Don't look like it got that bad of a damage. I'll keep on rolling.
Thank you very much, Wesley. As we were discussing that there, Kevin Smith snapped down into the grass as well. He's got significant right front damage. That allowed Chris White and co. to get on through. But one of the biggest movers already, Greg, in just 12 laps, 8 positions gained for one of the drivers you said to keep an eye on in Anderson.
Yeah, Caden Anderson coming in cold, no practice, but when I was talking to him a little bit before the green flag fell, he said, I'm not worried. I've got 200 laps to figure it out. Justin, it took him less than 10. He has got this thing figured out, and he is coming in a hurry. Started 15th all the way up to 7th, and we know Caden likes this racetrack based off the run that he had at Richmond on Thursday. And how about this for a stat, Justin? Caden ran virtually that entire race, no audio. He could not hear a thing that was going on in that race car through most of the race, and he still walked away with a 2nd place finish.
So based on your discussion, what did he tell you he adjusted for this race tonight with the Cup car? Because remember, he was good on the short and mid run, but seemed to fall off in the long run.
Yeah, he's hoping for a little bit more long run speed. He wasn't happy at all with the setup on Thursday at the start of the race. Made some air pressure adjustments throughout the course of the race to get the truck to where he liked it. Unfortunately, you're not able to make as many adjustments in the Cup cars as it is a fixed setup, but I have to say Caden definitely likes what he has under him right now in the Harvest Chevrolet. We will see how it goes through the remainder as this run ticks away more and more laps, but boy, I gotta tell you, I like what I'm seeing out of that 37 car so far as he hounds our pole sitter Chris White.
You can see on board trying to hunt down the front end and back end of Chris White's car. Tapped the wall a little bit there, and he's trying that wider arc we were talking about on Thursday that can help you based on your preferences on the tires. Some drivers prefer to go straight down to the O line, but a new race leader, Dan West Jr., making the pass on Scott Mann in 3 and 4 after Mann completely missed the bottom.
Yeah, it almost looked for half a second like Mann was just letting him go, but he missed it there, and that allows Dan West Jr. to go right back to where he was on Thursday, leading the way here at Richmond after leading all 200 laps. He is going to inherit the lead. He took the lead on lap 17, now working lap 19. 2 laps in the books for Dan West Jr. up front, but he's got some pressure coming behind him because Jeff Stabnow, 2 wins in a row for the Northwest Cup Series at one point before having that streak fall to Dan West Jr. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the Truck Series, but 2 wins on the year as well for Stabnow, including the Roval earlier this year at Charlotte. The other win, Bristol, a short track. So Stabnow, another guy who knows how to get it done here on the short tracks.
Here's the thing, though, when it comes to man, he has fallen off a cliff here. Surprised at how high he's been going to let drivers go, but you can tell just when he's on the bottom here, he is losing about a car length every corner exit and is really snapped loose.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if man was banking on short runs here at Richmond, because the longer he goes, the more and more he is slipping. He is falling to third now, with Sean Brightsman beginning to come up in his mirror in fourth. How about Corey Walters in the 5th place right now in the Hooters Ford? We haven't really gotten to talk much about Corey Walters this season because he's had a little bit of a bad luck streak, Justin, but here he is early in the race, started 7th, running 5th right now. Good run for the 9.
Now, Walters started off the season with a victory, taking a bit of a different look again tonight. And I've seen these types of races from Walters before where on the rhythm tracks, he can put in good performances. And he's doing that right now. Take a look at the right side of your screen, though, and that's been up for the past minute or so. You can already see that traffic may come into play in about 10-15 laps or so based on how they have spread apart in that backpack of the field.
And remember, Justin, we saw that on Thursday in the truck race. It wasn't so much of a factor for West Jr., but the battle per second between Bill Ross Jr., we had Chris White, Caden Anderson, Stabnow was up there for a little bit. That lap traffic really played a role in that when those drivers did catch lap traffic on that long green flag run before the cautions precautions took place later in the race. But on that long green flag run, lap traffic definitely played a role in that battle for second. So we may see it here shortly as the leaders close in more and more. But are you at all surprised right now to see who's running first and second right now? 2 of the all-time winningest drivers in this series.
Yes, indeed. Dan West Jr., 5th all-time in victories. Your race leader is Jeff Stabnow, 3rd all-time in whole in the entire history of Northwest Racing Series as well. Currently in P number 2. Those are 2 of the fastest cars at the track. Dan West Jr. is currently setting 22 flats in clean air. Everybody else in the 22.2s on down.
That just shows you how strong that 55 car is and how much momentum he has. Notably, Justin, we talked about it a little bit in the pre-race. Dan West's son, Devin, who is always a threat in these races, both Cup Series and trucks, did not start the race today. Kind of surprised that Devin West did not make the call. He was in the session. He was in Richmond today, but did not make the call. So Devin West, who is a guy who always is in the mix every single week, not in the field tonight. So West Family Racing only has 1 entry in it tonight. It's that 55.
That was with the solid run we were talking about a little bit as well during that race from Devin West, having to come from the back all the way to the front. Still, though, Dan West Jr. in control of the field. He has led a majority of the laps so far tonight. Remember, led every single lap in the truck race. Things are going to get heating up, though, a little bit, though, because that Scott Mann started to drop back to where Sean Brightsman is on the racetrack.
But noticeably, he's not losing ground to Stabnow. Stabnow seems to really be falling off as well, as Mann is kind of hanging in there with him. It was half a second distance last time by. Stays the same this time, so they're running identical lap times. So while, yes, Brightsman is closing in on Mann, they're not losing ground to Stabnow. Dan West Jr., on the other hand, is pulling away from them, but Stabnow, something going on with the tires perhaps on the 24, because he is not pulling away from the battle that's about to brew for third between Mann and Brightsman, because here comes the LSR TV Toyota closing in a hurry on Scott Mann.
Slowly but surely, everyone marching their way back on forward. Someone that's been marching his way up and down the virtual pit road since the drop of the green flag of this run, Wesley Outland. Got some information on the leaders.
Yeah, hey, here's one thing you got to think about. Dan West, Stabnow, Brightsman, they're all LSR TV teammates, and that's what they're doing right now. They're being a team, and they're coasting around the racetrack. That's what they said. We're just making laps. For Mann says he's tied in and loose off the center as he's racing here in the first 30 laps or so. He's going to make an adjustment when he gets a chance to come down pit road.
Thank you very much as he lets by Brightsman, and there's a little bit of the teamwork coming in just a touch. And now all three of those drivers we just talked about working together, Greg, are now 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Sean Brightsman getting around Scott Mann, much like the passes before. Mann sliding up the track in turn number 3, and Brightsman was able to get under there. So the LSR TV drivers 1, 2, 3 right now. The fourth amigo in this one for the LSR TV entries, John Ottenbacher, is back to where he started, Justin. He had climbed up into the 9th position, but has since fallen back to 11th. But Ottenbacher having a real good, solid couple of weeks here, currently battling with James Vining in the 333. But Ottenbacher has really begun to turn his season around over the last couple of weeks. Some very solid runs for Ottenbacher. I believe he got a top 5 a few weeks ago, and I believe it was a truck race. But Ottenbacher's really starting to put together some solid runs. I won't be surprised to see that 89 start making noise here before too long.
He actually did indeed come away with one just a few weeks ago, and at the truck race was looking very strong as well. One of the drivers that is just a bit up the road, though, Chris White. Remember how he struggled at the start of this race? He has been one of the fastest cars on the track. Just a couple laps ago, had set 5 straight best laps out of everybody.
Yeah, he is really starting to pick it up, Justin. And with that long run speed beginning to fall off there, it's impressive to see them really starting to heat up right now as we are closing in on about 30 laps on this green flag run. As a matter of fact, we may have passed it already. So the tire fall off, a little bit of a surprise right now. But honestly, I'm just kind of surprised we've seen such a long run after what we saw on Thursday.
Leslie, unscheduled pit stop, it looks like, for Brad Carpenter. He's off towards your way.
Yeah, Carpenter's coming in. Hey, he's already having a struggle in this race. 2 laps down, probably going to come down a little bit more. One of the drivers that brought out the initial caution flag in that spree, Adam Petty, colors of number 31. He'll make his adjustments. He'll change 4 tires, add that splash of Sudoku fuel. He's back down and away.
Back onto the racetrack in the Victory Junction machine. And, of course, an important cause, the Victory Junction in real life. As well with the charity work they do, Greg. Sporting those colors tonight, and also, mind you, has the Victory Junction Donate Now link in the back. Trouble in the back straightaway. Corey Walters with a bit of a struggle.
Corey Walters running in 5th is going to lose a couple of spots there. As the Scott Mann in the 90, actually, no, I'm sorry. He had fallen outside the top 5. So, man, that 90 car has definitely gone sour. And I'm not sure if that was Man as in his last name or Man as in, oh man, I didn't think about it right there. But Anderson getting through to 4th, White up to 5th, Walters now riding in 6th, and he has some damage on the back as well after that.
Here's the thing, though. Guess who gave him the damage? Bit of a nudge from Anderson. Gave him that right rear damage. It was talked about in one of the real world broadcasts for NASCAR Cup Series actually just a few days ago. That right rear is so important to make sure you don't damage.
Yeah, so important. And with this race being as early as it is, you kind of want to keep that fast repair in the bank if you can, knowing what this track tends to produce as far as racing goes with tight quarter panel banging racing. So you might not want to use the fast repair right away. If you can get most of that damage repaired on optional repairs on pit road, if you can catch a caution, go for it. But it may these drivers may find themselves in a position before too long that they have to use that fast repair, and still we're not even quite a quarter of the way into this race, Justin. So I don't know if some drivers want to use a fast repair that early.
We've already ran about 40 laps green, though, since the initial lap 1 caution flag. Want to throw this over to you, Wesley. If this goes green, how does the fuel strategy play out for this race, in your opinion?
Well, one of the things that is so typical about Richmond Raceway is sometimes it can be a caution flag fiesta, and then the other times we can see these long green flag runs. Now, mind you, we're only working our first caution back at the beginning of the race, and so far we've probably had about a 35-lap green flag stretch. So with that being said, I think the pit window is probably going to be between lap 65, 70. If we do not get a caution, I believe and predict that's when pit stops and green flag conditions will begin.
I think it's going to be interesting, absolutely. And remember, though, too, the max you can go on fuel here about 110 laps. Still, though, change for position. Anderson able to make the move on Stapp now. That 24 was dancing off down the back straightaway off of turn 2 and is still dancing off the corners.
Yeah, the problems that the 90 car was having seems to be the identical problems for that number 24 of Stabnow. Was very strong on the short run, getting up as high as second, but boy, as this run has worn on, that number 24 has become very, very upset, especially on corner exit, Justin, as now he's falling back under pressure from Chris White, who is beginning to climb his way back up. Sorry, he is really beginning to settle down in the 83 car after falling outside the top 5 early on in this one. Coming back now in the 83, some damage on the right rear, but the 83 Ford really beginning to creep back up into the picture, back in the top 5, putting the pressure on for 4th.
And it appears we have someone parking their car tonight, Wesley. James Thurston done for the evening.
Yeah, we'll find out what's going on here with that driver, and if I can try to talk to him, we'll grab him on the show here. Yeah.
Yeah, came in for the unscheduled pit stop. Chris, your thoughts so far on the racing tonight? When the first time seeing this series in competition, been very clean so far.
It has. It's been very clean. It's like Wesley said, this place could be a caution fiesta, or you could have a lot of long green flag laps. As Chris White, he's trying to look underneath Stabnow there. That's for the 4th position, but I've been keeping my eye on Anderson. He's moved up 12 spots as now White now looks to the inside of Anderson. That's a side-by-side battle for position, and as White's going to take it, after that early slip up there on the start, White has looked to got back on the saddle, guys, and I think he's still going to be one to watch.
And tire saving can be so important too at this racetrack, Chris, for these long runs. With how hot this circuit is, it's coming into play for some of these drivers where they are still slipping and sliding. Walters just slipped and slided his way past behind Man, for example.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. You get hard on the binders right here, and it's going to, make the tires go away a little bit quicker. And, not everybody's cycled through pit stops yet, too. That's going to be another thing that's going to shake things up a lot. I'm interested to see what Anderson's going to do on fresh tires, because he's figured something out, and he has been the mover 12 spots. But like I said, I want to see what he does on fresh tires.
I'm very curious as well. Walter's still in 7th position. Chance, though, he and Man can both close it in on Stabnow, who continues to dance and slip and slide off of these corners.
Justin, I'm watching the driver behind Walters and Man right now. The 17 of Bill Ross Jr. had such a strong run going in the trucks on Thursday, but the time before, off of turn number 2, he had a big slide coming off turn number 2, made the save, but the 17 of Bill Ross Jr., we know how much speed he has here at Richmond after that run he had on Thursday. The side-by-side battle breaking out in front of him now.
And that is Man on the apron. Something going on with the 90. He is now off the pace.
Yeah,
really slowed down.
Something has definitely happened in the 90 car, because he is slowing down and coming on pit road. And I would have to guess that this is unscheduled, because that started all the way back in turn number 1. Something has gone amiss on our driver, who qualified in the 2nd position. And after leading the first 17 laps, Justin, it has been a struggle ever since then. As you see him kind of weaving the car back and forth, did he perhaps run out of fuel almost? Or is there something with the wheel going on?
Almost feel like it's either wheel or tires, because Wesley talked about the window he was expecting around 70. Fuel can make it to one stopper. It was the question of if the tires could do the same. And right now, Man, he's done. He's had enough.
Yeah, that makes me wonder if perhaps he might have had an issue with the wheel. We saw him kind of shaking the car on pit road, kind of doing the tire swerve that you see under caution. I'm wondering if maybe some wheel settings had gone sour on the 90 car, which caused that to happen, because he slowed down about a lap before he came into pit road. So that was telling me that something had gone wrong. Initially, I thought maybe he had run out of fuel, but with him just backing out right there, not just taking on fuel, that tells me it might have been wheel issues.
So Dan West Jr. is pulled away by 2 seconds, by the way, over Sean Breitzman. Anderson, White, Stabnow, the top 5. And remember, tomorrow morning, a brand new build comes into play on iRacing, which features multiple adjustments to the Cup car. Most notably, new damage model coming into play. Just imagine how this race would have played out if they had that new damage model, where not only could you break off your bumpers, have them flipping and flying around on your car, the chances were to break the tie rods and the suspension on the car significantly as well, Greg.
We've seen the damage model with the ARCA cars already, Justin, and the ARCA car damage model, which is the model that the Cup cars are getting tomorrow, is one of the most realistic aspects that iRacing has ever put together. The ARCA cars are just so impressive. even with the damage. But I'm looking forward to seeing how that that affects the racing here, Justin, because that new damage model is going to do a lot to the way these drivers treat these cup cars, because now they have to keep that in mind, that the damage is a lot more severe as opposed to as it is right now. As we see, for example, a couple of drivers, Chris White and Corey Walters, driving with right rear damage right now. On that new damage model, that's going to be a lot worse.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Wesley, you're standing by.
Yeah, I just grabbed a word with Scott, man. Obviously, declined comment right now. Guys, he just said things did not go well here at Richmond today for me. Instead of being a hazard for the remainder of this race, I'm just going to go ahead and park it. But one of the things y'all hinted on about the steering locking up and causing problems to get around the track, that's one of the cases that ended his night. Another driver I was talking about was Anderson. You mentioned Caden Anderson getting in the wall about 10 laps ago. Some damage on the right rear. His car seems like it's comfortable right now. A little stagger he thinks he's going to have a problem with as he goes in the corners, but right now he's kind of taking it easy. We're only in the first, 60 laps of this opening race. We didn't even hit halfway yet, and they're still thinking of a cycle of pit stops. This is very abnormal, guys, that we're going on almost a 55-plus lap green flag run since that opening start of the race, and we've been clean and green. So, again, I still think around 70, 75 laps we're going to see pit stops, but those are just some of the updates on drivers. Man is out, and Anderson is watching that right rear.
Keep an eye on this as things go on. Mind you, one of the adjustments to our two said tires for tomorrow for the Cup car. Still fighting side by side, though, for P6. Ross Jr. able to get the squeeze. Walter shuffle back to 7th. By the way, race leaders have entered thick traffic. West Jr. in a group of more than 4+ cars, Gray.
Yeah, he just put Gary Nichols 1 lap down. Actually, Nichols was already a couple laps down as he had to make an unscheduled pit stop as well. That puts the number 8 4 laps down right now in that number 8 Ford Mustang. The last car on the lead lap is the driver in front of him, Daryl Tidrick, in the 45. Remember, new manufacturer for the 45 this week. We're so used to seeing him in Toyota, running the Ford Mustang this week, kind of following in the footsteps like we talked about. Chris White making a switch to Ford a few weeks ago, and it paid off big. So perhaps Tidrick trying the same thing. But right now he's being scored in the 19th position after starting 13th. Ooh, in front of him, his teammate Dan Lowther getting the wall a little bit, and he's going to dive down to the bottom. Lowther just going to let him and the leader go as he caught the wall, and Lowther's stuck on the outside there. So problems for the 63 of Lowther.
He's 19th position right now as Gary Nichols also goes on by. By the way, we've seen in the backdrop Anderson moved up to 2nd position. He and West Jr. have been trading fastest lap times throughout this run as we're now entering more than 50, nearly 60+ laps on this green flag stint.
So Wesley mentioned we are closing in on pit stops, Justin, and with the track as hot as it is, you have to wonder just how abused the tires are right now. Caden Anderson has moved into 2nd position. He's gotten around Sean Breitzman. So the 37, with no practice, 2 laps of qualifying was the only laps he gotten on track, went from 15th to 2nd on the first green flag run, closing in on pit stops. Oh, a big slide from the 37 of Anderson. So he's no doubt ready for 4 fresh tires as soon as we complete this green flag run, which we're expecting to end shortly here. But I gotta say, that number 37 car is making a lot of noise to be a contender for this one by the end of it.
Was faster by about a 10th or so than the race leader, despite the slipping and sliding. Breitzman with a bit of a slide as well. Anderson a bit of a push tight off the sliding. But Wesley, you have a bit of an update on what just happened though with the 63.
Yeah, Dan Lowther, he's the last car on the lead lap, and or 1 lap down actually, first car lap down, and he just said, Wesley, I do not do well here. I'm just struggling because I'm not doing well here at Richmond. I do not care for this place too much. And he says, I need a caution.
I think a lot of people are screaming, I need a caution, Chris, at this point, with this being such a long run and the fall off already about a 1.5 seconds alone.
Yeah, definitely. People, they were running, high 21-second laps. Now we've fallen down to the 23-second range. Dan West just ran a 23.0. Caden Anderson, the only guy right now in the 22s. Now Dan West back into the 22. But yeah, these guys are just they are ready for 4 new tires, and I believe here within the next 4 or 5 laps, they're going to start seeing wholesale pit stops here very soon. Wesley's going to be busy in the pits as the 24's in trouble.
Jeff Stabnow, he's been slipping and sliding for the past 15 laps, slipped and slided his way into the grass, got really snapped loose off of turn 4, Greg, barely was able to keep it going.
He's going to lose several positions, Wesley. He's going to fall back to 9th, or I'm sorry, Justin, I'm getting so many names mixed up here. But Jeff Stabnow back to 9th after that big slide. So the 24, he was so strong on the short run, but man, ever since the 30 or the 46 of Brightsman was able to get around him, it has been a struggle for that number 24 car, and it has just gotten a lot worse with that slide through the grass, falling back to 9th now, feeling the heat from Carl Burke for 10th position. But notice who's up in front of him now. We've been keeping an eye on him. The 32 of Seth Frazier, the Wenatchee Washington driver, fell all the way back to 18th position after problems early in this race. I believe it was like lap 2 or 3 of this green flag run. Got caught up in some trouble, and he has worked his way back inside the top 10 in 8th position right now, putting pressure on John Ottenbacher. Another solid, quiet run for Ottenbacher. But man, that number 32, I'm very impressed with how he's been methodically working his way through, not pushing the envelope a whole lot, but he is getting pretty loose on corner exit as well. Just add him to the list of drivers who are begging for tires right now.
Remember here too, they are still about 10 laps away from, if anyone ducked down right now, they would be able to make it on fuel at about 115 laps to go. So keep that in mind with that pit window. Wesley, update.
Yeah, Stabnow says, Wesley, I need tires. There's a lot of people on this racetrack that need tires. So either we're coming to the pits for green flag pit stops here in a few moments, guys, or somebody's gonna bring out a caution by spinning out because they're using up that right rear.
Yeah, this is getting very, very intriguing and very difficult for these drivers. And one of the main things, too, when it comes to how slick and how loose the right rear is with these cars right now and these tires, Greg, is if you hit the throttle too hard, you'll snap around like we've seen a bit with Stabnow.
We've seen it with a lot of people, Justin. Sorry about that. But we've seen it with several drivers throughout the last 20, 30 laps or so. And this brings me to a question I have. If you get to a point that it gets too much to handle, do you go off sequence and you pit if you absolutely have to, and maybe throw the rest of the field into a position where they have to pit to not sacrifice so much time when we have a car on fresh tires? Do you think we may see someone get to the point where they have to short pit just because they can't hang on to it anymore?
I'm curious about that thought as well. Chris, your thoughts?
I mean, if you're trying to throw somebody else off, I mean, I would go for it, yes. But, I mean, if you're a car that's already running really good, like, say, a West, for example, or an Anderson, for an example, I think you stay on your original plan. And then that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same ballpark as well. If you've got the track position, go for it. If you feel like you're going to snap around, I think that's where we see what you discussed there, Greg. Get off the tires. Yes, it would put you in a box strategy-wise, but at the very least, it would make sure you don't finish with a wrecked car.
Yeah, and the guys I'm watching that specifically would be the likes of Stabnow, Corey Walters, who's now fallen outside the top 10 after running in the top 5 for much of the early race. Those are the guys that I'm kind of wondering if they would be willing to do that. One guy we haven't talked about very much at all just had a big slide off turn number 4 right as I begin to focus on him. That number 41 is Stephen O'Hare. He started 8th and has worked his way quietly into the top 5. Remember, he won the Texas truck race a few months ago just by kind of playing it safe and hanging out. So the 41, another very solid, quiet run for Stephen O'Hare, who has really put together some very, very good runs, both in the Cup Series and in the Truck Series. But man, he is loose off of turn number 4 every single lap.
And really drifting, especially on turn 4 exit, turn 1 entry. But here's the risk, too, of if you come in for that tire strategy we were talking about. If there's a caution of someone snapping around, there's a chance you're pinned a lap down as they go near 3 wide behind him.
Yeah, sorry, Justin, Ottenbacher slipped up there and almost got into Bill Ross Jr. And we see the result, Seth Frazier getting right past him.
Frazier able to make the move on Ottenbacher and Ross Jr. So everyone's still slipping and sliding at the very edge of their seats. Car crash in the pit road entry. It's Dan Lowther.
And Dan Lowther in the 63, we just talked about him, said he does not really like this racetrack and he needed a caution, wasn't getting it. Unfortunately, he almost was the caution there as he just decided, you know what, nope, we're done. I'm taking for Mr. Feelgoods if I can get to my pit stall. So Dan Lowther on pit road. So I believe that pit road is now open for business for the next couple of laps.
He's the first driver in, but an update coming in from O'Hare, who's still slipping and sliding in P5 in front of that congested battle.
Yeah, Dan Lowther is on pit road in the 63 car, but I just grabbed a word with Stephen O'Hare, and he says, hey guys, I appreciate y'all praising me on LSR TV, but my car is loose. I need tires. We need a caution. I'm about to throw out my water bottle.
Unfortunately, that's not a feature yet on iRacing. Maybe in 2025. Pit stop for Bill Ross Jr. He's coming towards Leslie, though.
Pit stop for the 17 machine, and I think we're going to start to see this plethora of green flag activity as the car number 17, shades of the colors of the old Matt Kenseth days at Roush, get underway. He's going to go to the right side. They're going to put on to take off those old, used-up radials of Goodyears on the right. Going to run over to the left side. New can of Sunoco race fuel is going in. Jack's coming down. He's getting ready to pull it away. A little track bar and a wedge took it out of the 17 as well. Ross back onto the racetrack.
So he's one of the first lead lap cars to come in. 12 drivers are currently on said lead lap and nearly slipped and slided his way on the apron. Mind you, there's a lot of marble buildup with how long this green flag run has been here, Ray.
Yeah, these drivers are coming up on 80 laps green flag. Actually, I believe just past 80 laps of green flag racing. So it's such a long run that these drivers have had. And very contrary to what we saw on Thursday in the trucks, Justin, we did see a green flag run that lasted a big chunk of the first half. But man, ever since that lap one incident, the drivers have really done a good job settling down and really showing a lot of patience here. A couple more cars coming on pit road. I saw the 45 of Tidrick make the hard left on the pit road, so he brings the Ford Mustang onto pit road. But only one car who is on the lead lap so far is pitted, that being the 17 of Bill Ross Jr. So a lot of drivers still thinking they can go a little bit longer. Whoa, one car way up the track behind Brightsman. That may have been the 63 of Lowther, who's already made his pit stop.
That's the tricky part when it comes to these pit stop sequences here. The more tricky it is on the fresher tires, the more the older car tires, or drivers with older tires in terms of their cars, are on the racetrack, Wesley. That's one of the main danger points when it comes to the pit strategy too here.
Yeah, and here's something else to also think about, guys. This is a daytime race as we're coming up on halfway. This is daytime conditions here at Virtual Richmond tonight on LSR TV. It's not a night race. Well, guess what happens in the daytime? The daytime, the sun's burning on the racetrack. It's the track temperature a lot warmer than usual. I think the track temperature is between 130, 140 degrees is what we're seeing. It's a nice 70, 80 degree virtual day here in our race broadcast. It's blistering these tires. Somebody is either going to blow a tire or somebody's going to spin out by making a careless error to negotiate on this racetrack. And I think it's coming within the next 10 laps. See, I really feel either we're going to see these green flag cycle of pit stops, because they've proven me wrong. A couple of cars came in, but a majority of these guys are staying out. Eventually, they're going to start looking at having to change these tires.
Mind you, too, it's in sim time just past 3 p.m. right now on this very hot, sunny day. And it's been at 110 degrees for a majority of this run with massive amounts of rubber buildup. One of the battles heating up, though, as well, with the hot sun, is the battle for P5. Seth Frazier saying hello, Greg.
Yeah, Seth Frazier creeping up into the picture, trying to break into the top 5 for the first time since the initial green flag. Remember, he had that slip up early in the race, fell back to 18th position, got up to 6th after being able to pass both Ottenbacher and I believe it was the 9 of Walters, and there he is going after O'Hare in the 41. Seth Frazier seems to really like what he's got on the long run in that number 32, the Miller Lite Ford Mustang. And remember, the last time that paint scheme ran in real life, it was a winner. Seth Frazier trying to summon up that luck.
Pit stop underway for Stabnow, Wesley.
Yeah, Stabnow just came in. Carpenter came in. A couple other cars on the pit exit, but we're watching the LSR TV entry of Jeff Stabnow. He's currently about 1 lap down. Now he might go down a lap or more, but he had to take on them new tires. He said he was using up the right rear. The car was really tight. He had to come to the pits. Here comes Brightsman, his teammate for Team LSR. He'll give up the number 7 position as his 46 Toyota will now come down pit road to the attention of his crew. Again, happy with the car, just need to get new tires. So again, Bruggsman, Sean O'Hare is also on pit road in the 41 car. Right behind him, 1 pit stall back, same thing. Gonna make an adjustment, make things work tight in and loose off the center for the 41, but other than that, his Ford is looking very, very strong. They're happy with their pit stops. 4 new tires. They're licking their chops and happy to bring this to the finish if it does go 100 laps to the checker, as we are now coming up on halfway.
And this is where you could split the race in half here with the quick caution even. Seth Frazier now ducks into the pit lane, and he did a phenomenal job.
Justin, Dan West Jr., the race leader, trying to get on pit road, slipped up going into 3, missed the entry. He's got to go another lap.
And a huge mistake for West Jr. Had a good 2-3 second advantage. That's down to only about 1.1 seconds with that mistake. Unbelievable. We'll see if he's able to nail it this time. Has to come in as well with Corey Walters and a couple others. And this time does nail it into the pit entry, Wesley.
Yeah, here comes some more cars. The 9 of Walters is coming in. So is also that the 55, Dan West, the man who's led the majority of the race so far for Team LSR. And again, a crucial mistake. Greg, me and you covered the truck race at Charlotte a couple of weeks ago for the Northwestern iRacing Truck Series on LSR TV. And the same thing happened to him. He was coming for a pit stall and he missed and shot the gap, and it cost him dearly. Number 9 overshoots his pit stall. We talked about that. Walters overshoots his pit stall. He's going to at least lose 2 or 3 seconds time exit on the racetrack as everybody else is coming down for service, tires, and all this good things. And guys, I was right, just about 10 laps late.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead is about to get intense because of that mistake for Dan West Jr. Guess what? Anderson, with his strong pit entry, has closed the gap to 1 car length in the mix of a heated battle with traffic, 2-3 wide. Sean Brightsman now also in the picture at full speed.
All these cars are for position right now. This will be the race lead once this all cycles down, as John Ottenbacher is the race leader. And remember, Bill Ross Jr., who's right up there in front of him, already made his pit stop about 20 laps ago. He will be the de facto race leader once Ottenbacher makes his pit stall, unless the 55 is able to get around him before Ottenbacher does. So Bill Ross Jr., he's still he is about 20 laps ahead of these guys, then Brightsman, Anderson, West, and company. So right now, we're the only one left who has not pitted is Ottenbacher, who continues to lead, and he is staying out there right now. So the 4th LSR TV entry still leading the way, right? He has gone a long way, 106 laps complete without a pit stop. So he's going to lose a lot of time here if he doesn't pit soon.
New net race leader, though, Dan West Jr. just drove right on by Bill Ross Jr. Everyone else behind them is still getting stacked up behind James Vining, Brightsman, and Anderson, both being heavily held up. Keep in mind, there were just 5 cars in the lead lap. If anything happens, especially in this grouping, that could flip this race upside down like a birthday cake.
Remember, Bill Ross Jr. was flipped upside down late in the race on Thursday after contact with Caden Anderson. Right now, they are battling for the 2nd position with Sean Brightsman. Wow, Caden Anderson kind of giving a little bit of a shot to James Vining there to get him by Brightsman, and Anderson's going to make it work to get around both Ross and Brightsman and get through. Anderson the 2nd, well, 3rd right now until Ottenbacher pits, but now Brightsman coming back after him, and that right there, even just 20 laps difference or so, you're seeing the difference on fresh tires as opposed to a couple of laps with the 17 of Bill Ross Jr.
It's more than a couple for him, though. It's about an undercut compared to some of the cars he just had to deal with of 15-something odd laps. James Vining's even on fresher tires and nearly hits the back end and snaps loose. Able to keep it going, though. The 333 avoids the inside wall. Still, though, Ottenbacher trying to stretch it. And now he is coming into the pit lane, this time by the freshest tires in the track, Wesley.
Yeah, here comes Ottenbacher, and again, he's probably got about 8 laps advantage over the rest of the pack if they are able to have to come back and make more pit stops. That is a big IF right now because we are on almost a 100-lap green flag run as we iterated only on one caution flag. But nonetheless, Ottenbacher comes to his pit stall. It's going to be a standard pit stop. They're going to change all 4 of these tires. They're going to put in that Sunoco Racing fuel. No track bar, no wedge, nothing needed. Tear off on the windshield. They've already got the right side done. The crew's going to run over down to the left side virtually and do the same type of work on that 89. Jacks down, squeals the tires, stays at pit road speed. He's back on here at Richmond.
Off and away off the pit lane. Here's the downside, though. Just lost a lap. In about 12th position, cycling right into the battle for P12 now with James Vining. So lost a decent amount of time. Remember, though, we've seen just the difference of a few laps on the tires, Greg. We're seeing it come into play potentially here and see how much ground he can gain back here. 27 seconds back in the lead, though.
Justin, an interesting note that I noticed there on Ottenbacher. Before the race, how long did you say it was about the maximum you could go?
About 110, 115.
He pitted on lap 109 of that run, so Ottenbacher stretched it about as far as you humanly could here at Richmond. Unfortunately, it did cost him a lap, and he is not even in the lucky dog position right now. He has to pass 3 cars to get up there. Like Wesley mentioned, he will be on about 8-lap pressure tires in the rest of the field, but it's going to take some racers' luck to get the 89 back up into the picture there. However, we're seeing it, the fresh tires as opposed to what the 333's got in front of him. There's Bill Ross Jr., who's on the lead lap in the 4th position, but falling like a rock because he pitted early as opposed to the rest of them. Checking back in up at the lead, Dan West Jr., before the pit stops began, had about a 5-second lead over Caden Anderson. With that slip up trying to get on the pit road, it is less than a second, 0.8 of a second right now between West Jr. and Anderson. That whole cycle cost West 4 seconds on the track.
Just shows that one mistake can definitely cost you, and now it could be a barn burner up at the front. By the way, Bruce Lee Weaver has come in and out of the pit lane. He's a couple laps down to the track. Still, under 85 laps to go from Richmond Raceway. Let's bring back in Chris. Your thoughts on how this race has progressed so far. One of the longest green flag runs I think we've seen here on LSR TV at the virtual Richmond in a while.
Yeah, it's definitely not something I expected. I expected probably, 4 or 5 cautions by now, but man, only 1 caution in this race. And you got to wonder what West is thinking right now in his head. He's got to be, virtually kicking himself right now for that mistake coming on pit lane. And earlier I alluded to, I wanted to see how good Anderson is on fresher tires. And right now the lap times are proving it. He's been faster than West the last 10 laps.
Yeah, once again, a 22 flat for West Jr., a 21.953 for Caden Anderson, about a 1/10 of a second quicker. Still, the problem is, though, the gap is about, once again, now 9/10 of a second after a bit of a bobble on the track.
So Caden Anderson trying to get back up there and contend with Dan West Jr. They're 3 seconds ahead of 3rd place Sean Breitzman in the number 46, who really has no pressure out the back, as it's another 5 seconds back to Bill Ross Jr., who is trying to hang on right now. He's about a second ahead of Chris White, the pole sitter, in the number 83, rounds out the top 5. But we're seeing right now how those older tires on Bill Ross Jr. is really affecting him here on this long green flag run. And I'm with Chris. I was expecting a lot more cautions in this one than what we've seen so far. I thought Lowther and West were going to get together a little bit there in turn number 3. But Dan West Jr. has done a phenomenal job getting himself back up in the lead, which is where he was all day on Thursday at this track. Caden Anderson back in 2nd, where he finished on Thursday as well. Justin, the top 2 in this race right now, Dan West Jr. and Caden Anderson, that's the exact positions that they finished in the truck race on Thursday.
0.3 of a second loss with that near contact with Dan Lowther that time for Caden Anderson. But how is the leader feeling, Wesley? Now up in front by 0.8 again.
Hey, and guys, can I say that was my pick before the green flag? Started third in the lead, pit stops, almost overshot the pit exit or pit entrance, almost hit the wall. He said that whenever he made that mistake, he said, Wesley, that was a mental error on my part. I think I just overshot too quickly, and then I realized that I needed to slow down or I would have suffered a pit road penalty, and that's why he decided to stay on there on the track, as we do have more cars pitting. 10th place contender right now on the racetrack, Chris White, giving up his top 10 run right now. He's at pit stall number 2. He is taking on 4 tires, it looks like, on the number 10 car, and a splash of fuel. But again, West is like, hey, I didn't have to use that reset. I didn't damage my car when I made that mistake before pitting. I'm comfortable where I'm at. And guys, this car is probably the best I've ever had it in virtual Richmond.
And it's been looking like that. By the way, though, Anderson has been quicker, though, than the leader for the past 3 laps. Thing is, though, with Chris White, just 20 laps on that set of tires. Really interested on the reasoning for the pit stop there and sacrificing the lead lap. That puts him now in 17th spot, first car 2 laps downgrade.
I'm wondering if the damage that he suffered earlier in the day was just getting to be too much for him, Justin. I did not notice if he took the fast repair on that first pit stop or not. So the car is repaired now, so I'm wondering if he took the fast repair on that pit stop after skipping it on the second one.
Trouble back straight away. Daryl Tedrick hard into the inside wall. Caution is out. After more than 100-something odd laps, the 45 noses it hard into the inside wall.
I believe he just got loose, overcorrected, hit the outside wall, and it shot him directly into the inside wall. That was a hard shot for the 45 Mustang.
And completely snapped loose, it looked like, after he bobbled the first time, Chris, and smacked that wall, and that triggers the caution.
Yeah, that's not one of your run-of-the-mill taps on the wall either. That thing took him to a complete sudden stop. Now you got to wonder what this is going to do. Are we going to see some more pit stops here?
This is going to really shake things up here. Everyone making their way down to the pit lane with the quick caution flag after the contact. This is going to also only mean 8 drivers on the lead lap. One of them that is not on the lead lap, though, Chris White, after just pitting 2 laps ago, Wesley.
And we'll find out what's going on with his car in just a second, the driver audio. But right now, pit stops are underway. The leader, Dan West, is in. Brightman is in. Anderson's in. Ross is in. Fraser, Stabnow, O'Hare, Burke, a Partridge, and a Pear Tree. Basically, the top 10 leaders are all into the pits, making adjustments, getting tires and fuel. Chris White, I have him now on our racing in-car audio. Chris, what's going on with the 83 car? Why did you pit right before this caution flag, and you said it hurt you?
It certainly did hurt. You know, I came in and made that pit stop. When I got back on the track, I got the racing icon on my screen that started flashing yellow, showing low fuel. Unfortunately, they didn't put enough fuel in my car, so I had to come back in and get some fuel. I wasn't going to make it to the end.
So, guys, he came to the pits the last stop and did not take enough fuel to go to the finish. That's Chris White.
Thank you.
Bad luck for the 83 machine, and the worst timing possible for the caution. Yes, he can take a wave to get to 1 lap down, but now this really kind of puts him in a box the rest of the way where he's going to need another caution gray.
And he's got to get around the 42 of Bozer as well to get into that lucky dog position. If he can catch a caution, he's got to be able to get around the 42. Fortunately for him, with him having just pitted, he doesn't need to pit on this caution. So we'll see if he does come in and just maybe get another splash of fuel or not. Does not look like he will. So that does play into his advantage there, as he had pitted just before the caution. Doesn't have to on this. And we'll see, actually, I think he might move into the lucky dog position, as Bozer, I believe, did come into pit road. No.
But as that pit stop sequence went on, Dan West Jr. got psycho towards 7 after he had a potential penalty. Caden Anderson, though, is now the leader. He's with Wesley on the radio.
Yeah, Caden Anderson's Wesley LSR TV. You have got a up and down roller coaster day here at Richmond, but you're happy right now in P1.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
So talk about the sequence of events that you went through when you were talking about with me earlier about you and the crew and the team talking about using up the right rear, bouncing off the wall. What did it take to overcome not blowing that tire and then going through this green flag pit stops? And now I wonder if we're going to start seeing caution after caution after caution.
Yeah, I didn't get any practice here today, so qualifying laps, the 2 laps there were my only laps on the air before the race. I was trying to figure out how far I can drive in, how far I can drive off, and try to get as much advantage as I can. We figured it out, and we didn't do too much damage to the car, so we started rolling and running to the front. And I saw Dan miss his pit stop the first time around, so I figured I'd pit with him. And we ended up pitting, and then he just got a speeding penalty, so I'm sitting pretty happy right now with a pretty good car.
Well, we're getting ready to go back for the restart. You're in P1, and we'll see if we can talk to you at the end of the finish.
10-4, thank you.
That's Caden Anderson, Justin and Greg. He's got a really, really strong 37, even after his trials and tribulations before the first 100 laps. He's ready to bring this to the checkered flag at Richmond.
Just brought us to the green flag. In fact, just now with 69 laps to go, 2 drivers were caught speeding. Dan West Jr., Sean Brightsman during that pit stop period. There were also 2, make it 3 other wave-around cars. Anderson, though, having to deal with Bill Ross Jr. up towards the front as they continue to try and scrap around. Mind you, West Jr. is still stuck in traffic nearly 3 seconds behind Gray.
Justin, that caution is exactly what the doctor ordered for that number 17 of Bill Ross Jr. Remember, he was off sequence by about 20 laps as opposed to the rest of the field, and it was showing on racetrack on that long green flag run. With the caution and getting the pit stop, that has put him in the 2nd position when it was all said and done. That is exactly what that 17 car needed. Now we get to see a little bit of a rematch for that battle for 2nd between Anderson and Ross on Thursday, but look who has crept his way up into 3rd behind them. Seth Frazier in the 32 fell back to 18th position at one point. He's now up in the top 3.
He was the fastest car on the racetrack as well last time by. And remember, still has the faster pair in hand if needed. Anderson brings the fastest lap back his direction with the 21.6. Frazier in the 21.7s in the conga line. Keep in mind, the drivers outside this lead stanza are in the 21.9s. These are 3 of the fastest cars in the field, Greg.
Yeah, this has been so impressive by Anderson to be able to get up there after starting 15th position. Here's Daryl Tidder coming out right in front of the field, gets down on the apron to avoid it, but the battle is for 2nd right now between Ross and Frazier, and like you mentioned, 3 of the fastest cars on the track right now. But how about the fact that 2 of the
Trouble, turn
strongest cars...
4, Daryl Tidrick getting in contact with James Vining. We stay green, nearly brought out the caution. Tidrick, mind you, at the start, slammed the wall hard, and just had contact in turn 3 after Vining hit his right front after Tidrick had a bobble down the back.
And that's just a bad day going even worse quick for Daryl Tidrick after bringing out the caution there a couple of laps ago, using the fast repair and shooting right down into trouble once again. Gets it straightened out, but man, the 45 not looking good right now for Daryl Tidrick right now. But I want to go back to the drivers who got that penalty earlier, or there on that last caution. Dan West Jr. and Sean Brightsman, those were 2 of the strongest cars all day, running 1st and 3rd at the time of the caution. Now they're having to work their way back up. West is already back up to 7th, putting pressure on Carl Burke for 6th, with Brightsman mired in traffic a little bit, a spot behind in 8th. So they are making their way through, but Brightsman having a little bit of a harder time getting through traffic than West is.
Yeah, that incident we just talked about, should check myself, was on the pit exit after the contact, the first off the restart for the 45. Here's the problem. Brightsman ran over the car in front of him, and now his front nose is crushed in. That could bring in some temp issues. Wesley, though, you have an update.
Yeah, Vining, I just checking on him and his crew, and they said they got a little bit of damage, but they're not going to come to the pits. It's not really anything that's worth watching on the 333, but the other driver that you were just mentioning, they got into him. It looks like he's definitely going to have some problems. He definitely needs a caution flag to try to do that fix repair. But again, Vining is okay. He'll stay out, but he's a lap down.
Is the cat okay?
Oh, yeah, the cat did not attack him this time. The stowaway cat is right there on his chair being nice.
Excellent.
Make sure that cat is buckled up, though. That's the thing. Make sure it doesn't go away. There goes Vining, though, into the grass. He slips and slides, and the traction went away this time.
And the cat just attacked him, guys. That's what I was told.
Yep. Oh, boy.
This is why you put your cat into a seatbelt when you go into a race, everybody. Either way, he's 14th on the track. The car behind him in Kevin Smith also smacked the wall. That was the 10th place car. So everyone's slipping and sliding once again. Mind you, this is with the track temp a bit cooler than we were talking about before by 4 degrees. Still red hot at 106.
Yeah, guys, just have to butt in for just 1 second. Just saw Dan West. He took that 6th spot away from Carl Burke. So Dan West trying to claw his way, speaking of cats, trying to claw his way back up towards the front of the field. And he's still got a ways to go, though, but he's chipping into that gap.
Slowly but surely, he was able to quickly get by the lap traffic after having the speeding penalty and the end of the longest line penalty, and has now moved his way into the lead grouping. By the way, you seen moments ago, Frazier has moved up in P2 in front of Bill Ross Jr. and is still one of the faster cars on the track.
Remember, Justin, we were talking about it before that caution came out. John Ottenbacher was going to get pinned a lap down. He is still a lap down, but he is very, very much solidified in the lucky dog position right now as Dan West Jr. trying to figure a way out around that number 89 car. So I'm keeping my eye on that number 89 car, because if he can catch another caution and get back on the lead lap, this might not be over for him, as well as he was able to stretch it 109 laps under that green flag run before having to pit. Now he's just going to move over and let Dan West Jr. go. So the 89 car, while it didn't work out the way he was hoping for, it might not be a lost cause yet, as he's still in the lucky dog position if he can catch another caution.
Indeed he is right now. That's got to be the goal if you're John Ottenbacher. Plus you need a caution flag before that Anderson catches up to the back end of 2 of the wave around cars. Those drivers, Kevin Smith, we talked about, had some trouble down the back straightaway 5-10 laps ago. Frank Harris, they're only about, give or take, 8 car lengths up the road, Chris.
Yeah, this is just an absolute torrid pace that Anderson's been putting on right here. As you can see, the lap traffic ahead of him, they're duking it out too wide. Now they're back to single file racing, but he's just putting an absolute show on up front. And look how fast he's caught this lap traffic.
Down to the bottom side, and that puts Ottenbacher out of the lucky dog spot and moves Frank Harris into it. Harris way up the racetrack, nearly hit the quarter panel of Anderson.
And Justin, Harris almost hit the 00 when Anderson was catching up there as well. The number 11 has gotten very, very tight on entry both times through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 that time, and he almost caught the 00 right in front of Anderson when he got that big run that Chris mentioned a moment ago. So a little bit of a nervous moment there for Anderson being behind those guys. I'm sure he's very happy to be around them free and clear, trying to pull away from Seth Frazier. Has gotten around the 00 and is now trying to catch up to the 11 of Smith or Harris.
Speaking of Frazier, have to wonder how he's feeling, Wesley, at that race car in second.
Yeah, just checked in with the crew on the 32 machine, and guys, he's saying that he's comfortable with the race car. The Ford is good, but he has not been able to use that master reset, and because he hasn't been able to do a master reset on damage yet, he feels like his car has not been able to show full potential. He gets a caution, he's going to do it, and then he's going to really show what he can do at the finish. So we're under 50 to go at Richmond.
Still in a ton of traffic as well, mind you, too. Thank you very much, Wesley. 2.2 seconds now behind. Lost a couple tenths trying to get around Frank Harris. 48 laps to go at Richmond. Anderson in the lead. Of note, Dan West Jr. has gotten up to P5 and is slowly reeling back in Jeff Stapnell after passing O'Hare a couple laps ago.
Justin, going back to what Wesley talked about on Frazier a moment ago with not using the fast repair yet, remember, he did that same thing in Kansas a few weeks ago. We had a very fast race car that day. Got caught up in an incident early, was still in good track position, decided to save the fast repair for later. It worked as he was able to hold on for second, but unfortunately we didn't get to see what he had left, as immediately after using the fast repair got caught up in another accident. But Frazier is known for this, saving that fast repair even with damage to hang on to it for later if needed. Unfortunately for him, he's going to need a caution to be able to use it right now. And with that long green flag run, if you're Seth Frazier, are you a little worried that might not come?
Have to wonder if that might be the case here with how this race has trended. Mind you, though, Frank Harris did smack the wall trying to let by some of the lead cars. was able to keep it off West Junior as he went by, and now let's by O'Hare. Now, of course, though, to keep in mind, though, Chris, want to bring you on this, regardless of the car, whether it's on pavement, on dirt, you want to have the faster pair for the late case scenarios in case anything happens. The big one, having a wheel disconnection, anything technical happen to you, a cat jumping on your wheel, a cupcake randomly flying through a window, stuff like that.
Yeah, if I've never heard of a cat jumping on the wheel until Wesley brought it up a while ago, and definitely not the cupcake thing. But yeah, you were exactly right. You got to have that fast repair. And we were looking at the 89 machine of Ottenbacher. He is back to that lucky dog spot, and he is, he was up front earlier, and he's back to the lucky dog spot. But back to what you mentioned, that fast repair, definitely something you do want to have in your back pocket in case you get caught up in a wreck with, say, 15 or 10 to go, and you're one of the only cars left on the lead lap. Say if there's like 3 or 4 cars left, and you've got a fast car, and you're capable of being up front. Like I said, it's a good thing to have in your back pocket.
That's why Frazier's holding on to in case there's that late situation. Change for P4. Dan West Jr. given space by Jeff Stabnow. West Jr. has been consistently the fastest car on the racetrack throughout this run. Here's the downside, Greg. It's still 4.6 seconds to Anderson. It's a question of what if.
And I don't know if he has enough time if we stay green, Justin, because we've seen it on that previous green flag run before that caution came out and those pit stops happened. Anderson was about even with West Jr. before all that happened. So that's going to be a tall task for West Jr. to be able to get up there and catch Anderson with just 40 laps to go if this stays green. I think he's going to need a caution in order to make it work, because he's gotten around Stab now, who has also gotten his way back up into the picture after that car was not happy on the long run. Oh, big slide from Bill Ross Jr. in front of Dan West Jr. there. But if I'm the 55, I'm hoping for a caution, because that 37 car was even with him after the green flag pit stops and did not lose nor gain ground. So the 55 might be in trouble if it comes down to a green flag run trying to catch that 37.
Thought process brought by one of our spotters on the racetrack is how hard is he pushing? Remember, the tires were a major talking point in the first long run. What's going on with the 55?
Oh, I just checked in with the crew on the 55 LSR TV entry, and you're exactly right, guys. He is pushing that car to the limit, and when he's doing that, he's using up those tires very quickly.
So the question's going to be, how long can he keep up this pace? Already reeling in Bill Ross Jr., but eventually those tires are going to fall off a cliff at this rate.
It's still getting worse out there, Justin. Track temperature has gone down a little bit. It's now 106, but it's still in the triple digits. So that is just eating up these tires and making the tire wear situation just that much worse for the rest of the field. Oh, wow. Big slide from the 55 off of turn number 2. I don't know how Dan West Jr. made that save. That's a dirt track racer in it, because he was facing the infield wall off turn number 2 that last time by.
That kind of an absolutely disastrous.
Yeah, he lost a lot of ground as well. He went from almost, 3.5 seconds or 4 seconds back to 4.5 seconds. He didn't lose much, but he lost enough. Now he's got to catch right back up to Ross. And he's got a great car. We can't deny that, but that little bobble, he's had a couple of bobbles, today, the pit road incident, and that one right there that has really kept him from being up front.
And remember, with the current tire model in iRacing, if you slide the tires just like that with Ross Jr., and what we've seen with West Jr., you end up making it worse and worse for you for the long run. West Jr. takes advantage of Ross Jr.'s mistake and moves up to P3, but eventually, the more and more sliding they do, the worse it's going to get, like we've seen on the first long run of the race, Greg.
Yeah, and these tires, they've been out there for quite some time now. Not quite to the point that they were on the long run, but remember, it was around this stage of the run that we really started to see these cars really start dancing around, especially the 24 Stab now, going back to that first green flag run. It was around this stage of the run that they really started to get a little bit iffy with those tires, and we started to see it then. We're starting to see it now. So maybe now these drivers, knowing what they can expect from the cars after having that long a run, maybe that'll help them manage them a little bit better, especially perhaps in the case of the 37, because remember, not only does he have that knowledge in the bank? Remember, Anderson spent that entire first run climbing through the field from his 15th starting position. He has been in the lead since this run started, so he has been able to focus more and more on just running his line and not trying to pass traffic to get up into this position. Now that he's in that position, he can save a little bit more than he was able to on that first run.
Want to see if we can run on board with Caden Anderson as he tries to slip and slide. He's really slipped and slid and lost a lot of time. Let's take a listen for a couple laps.
Hey, Justin Greg, got it on crew. They told him to slow down. It's time to start saving your tires for the finish. We're just under 30 laps to go. Slow down. You've got too big of an interval lead over the pack. Save your tires for the finish in case this race goes to the checkered flag.
And you're seeing it just with how the inputs are being put in on the throttle as well. He's got that cushion to work with, Greg, of more than 3 seconds. That is reduced to 2.8 seconds. He's using all of that time.
Yeah, Anderson is in that position that he's able to save it and not push it a whole lot like you mentioned, and that is allowing him to be able to save those tires a little bit. We were talking about it there while we were on that run riding with him, that he had fallen off quite a bit saving those tires, but it's still quite a big gap back to the 32 of Frazier, almost an entire straightaway here at Richmond, back to the 32 of Seth Frazier. But Caden Anderson doing a great job right now, just hanging on, saving the tires, but not losing a whole lot of time to the 32 of Frazier. As a matter of fact, he gained a 10th on second place that time. So Anderson playing the tire game, but doing it very conservatively, not sacrificing too much track time.
As a matter of fact, as you follow along with Frazier, Anderson is still setting faster lap times than the 32 by about a tenth or so a second on average. In fact, the average past 5 laps, while Frazier's been one of the quicker cars, has still not been able to even eat into the gap whatsoever, because it seems the time swings immediately back the other direction the next lap, Greg.
That just shows you how even these guys are, Justin. One lap Frazier's faster, the other lap Anderson's faster. But right now, Anderson is in a little bit of lap traffic versus the 00 of Kevin Smith. We talked about that last time the Cup Series was racing, kind of some Starcom racing vibes on that 00 car. Haven't gotten a chance to really mention him a whole lot. Kevin Smith making his second start of the year, currently riding 1 lap down, make it 2 laps down here as Anderson crosses the strike there. Next up for Anderson will be Dan Lauder in the number 63, who just has not had a good run today, Justin. He has shown a lot of potential in that 63 car at other tracks, but he mentioned it to Wesley talking to him earlier. He just does not like Richmond. It's not one of his better tracks, and 2 laps down right now, about to fall a 3rd lap down to our race leader Caden Anderson. But checking back in with the second place car, Seth Frazier, still around 2.7 2.8 seconds back, kind of bubbling between them right now. So the top 2 still running pretty even. Dan West Jr. has not really gained a lot of ground on race leader Caden Anderson. He is still 4.3 back of the race leader, and about 2.5 back to Frazier, actually 1.5, excuse me, as he's trying to reel in that 32. But the top 3 are all running pretty similar lap times right now.
The thing is, the third driver in that top 3 grouping, Dan West Jr., we talked about him pushing tires. Was we just checked in fact, for us, did use up those tires we were talking about. Eventually, he was going to fall off the cliff, and Chris, he's had that happen now with under 20 to go.
Yeah, definitely. He has lost a lot of ground to the lead pack, especially Anderson and Frazier, and there is less than 20 to go now. A 4.5 second gap. He's either A, going to need a caution, B, he's going to need the ground to open up and swallow Anderson whole, and I don't think option B is going to happen.
I mean, stranger things have happened. I've heard
You are correct.
Yes, indeed. By the way, it's
Hey, and guys, and Seth Frazier, I just checked on him as well. I'm sorry, I forgot to type in that info. I'm sorry, Justin, but Seth Frazier, he said, Wesley, it's go time. I have punched the go button. It is time to put my cards on the table and show what I've got on that Miller Lite number 32 machine. As Anderson is saving, Frazier is going for it, but it looks like it's just too big of a gap.
Yeah, the gap is still stayed now 2.9, make it 3 seconds, the gap between those two drivers, give or take. The faster lap going to Frazier, though, by about 1/10 of a second. So anything can happen in these next 16 laps. We'll have to see how things shape out here and what is starting to get pretty intense around the track. One of the intense battles, we haven't talked too much about Greg, Carl Burke today. In the 53, he's quietly been running up towards the front. He took an ELO to start the race today, Greg. He's quietly, methodically worked his way to a potential top 5. And placements with them, too.
He's going for that 5th spot right now, and he's going to get it from Bill Ross Jr. in the number 17. That's Carl Burke in the 53. So close to the win at Kansas. Boy, big slide from behind there by Sean Breitzman in the 46. But going back to Carl Burke, so close to the win at Kansas, just hasn't really been able to recover after that happened at Kansas a few weeks ago, and is having a very solid run right now. Like you mentioned, just climbed up
back
into the
straight
5th
away.
position.
Dan Lowther says hello to the inside wall. Hard hit for the 63. We stay green. That could have been big if he ricocheted off the wall like we've seen before with the 45.
Yeah, his teammate Daryl Tidrick not as lucky, but Lowther makes it to pit road, so the 63 will pit. And remember, he said this is just not his racetrack. I would not be surprised if Lowther just cuts his losses here and just says, you know what, I will call it a day. I would not be shocked if that is the case. We'll see if he does come in or if he just takes 4 fresh tires. Looks like he's just going to take the 4 fresh tires and finish this thing out. But this is definitely a day that Lowther's going to want to forget and just move on to the next one at Autopilot.
Yeah, it's been a rough one, unfortunately, for him. By the way, in all of that, Breitzman is now back up to P6. And despite the front nose damage, hasn't been affecting him. That was a factor in the eNASCAR race. But remember, fixed setup has a bit lower tape. If this was an open race, the tape levels might have been absolutely a problem, Chris.
Yeah, you are correct. And I was going to ask you before we hit that subject there, if you're Frazier or West, are you pounding on the steering wheel wondering why there was no caution, or were you pleading for a caution there?
I think everybody's saying there's debris on the track, there's oil, there's 7 different water bottles. There's also a yellow cone somehow that's floated its way there.
Somebody threw a wrapper on the racetrack. Please throw a yellow.
I don't think they're going to throw it, though, based on the trends. By
Guys,
the way,
have we ever seen a race in iRacing where there's been only
caution
flags in
Breitzman's
Richmond?
in a crash.
Oh, I jinxed it.
Breitzman and Smith tango up down the back straightaway, and this is not how some people wanted this to happen.
Oh man, a lot of damage on the 46 of Breitzman. Going back to see what happened. Oh, Smith caught the wall.
Wow.
Breitzman went for a ride. Wow.
Yeah, that was right in front of the lucky dog, too, and the 8 machine of Nichols had absolutely nowhere to go and T-boned him as well.
What a tough break for Breitzman. Wrong place, wrong time.
Justin, 10 or less than 10 to go. Does anybody pit and try to go for something here? Or do you try to go for it from here as long as you can make it? Looks like Anderson's going to come in.
I mean, we ran 65 laps, looking like no one's going to risk even restarting on the ice-cold tires. I mean, on the old tires, I should rather say, that are
Carl Burke.
blistering hot.
Carl Burke stayed out.
Burke
Wow.
stayed out, guys. Burke stayed out, but this is going to be the money stop. Hey, let's lay your cards on the table. Place your chips and let them fall as they may. Burke will go to the lead with cold tires. Everyone else is getting new, fresh rubber. Frazier is in, West is in, Ross is in, O'Hare, Anderson, Paulison. All 4 tires. Fuel to the finish, and they might get ready for overtime. Also joining us is Sean Breitzman. Breitzman does have a reset but what happened out there, because you feel like you're going to end this race several laps down in 46?
Yeah, we just got together with lap car there. He was trying to let us by, and he just grazed the wall, and it kind of shot him down a little bit into me, and sent me left front motor first into the inside wall. And fortunately, end of the day, really couldn't get it refired or anything, so we're taking a tow back to the pits, and they'll give us our fast repair, but we'll be a few laps down.
Sean, it's been a very abnormal race, virtually than we see before at Richmond. Do you think now we have set it up where there's going to be like yellow flags to the finish of this thing with now 16 to go?
You know, I'd say yes. I think we're going to see both green-white-checkered attempts, especially at the end, once the cautions breed cautions, and everybody's going to be overly aggressive. So I'm looking for dive bombs into one.
There you go. That's Brightsman. By the way, guys, quick date. Ottenbacher got the free pass, so he'll go back to the lead lap. Ottenbacher's on pit road. Walters, Bozer, White, Carpenter, Vining, all on pit road exit, having service being done. I think we're ready to bring this one to the finish, and it should be a wild 7 laps to the checkered flag.
You talk about wild. Burke staying out on 67 lap old tires here. You talk about gambles. This is putting all your chips on the table, including your mortgage to your house.
He might be outside his mind. That's my opinion. He might get eaten alive here, though, on this restart.
If I was Carl Burke, 2 tires I can understand. Maybe. But man, oh man, I don't know about this. This is interesting. I think if Carl Burke pulls this off, we're all going to Vegas with him.
I mean, it nearly worked for Jarl Tien in the eNASCAR race we're referring to, where he stayed out, came away with a P6. Here's the thing, precautions happened for about 30 or so laps before he lost the lead in that situation. We're getting ready for a restart with 4 laps to go. Oh man, Wesley, based on your experience, what are we about to see?
Justin, I just checked in with the crew on Carl Burke. He said, and I quote, "I'm about to get freight trained. I just don't want to wreck anybody. I made a mistake."
Yeah, this is going to get very dicey, Greg.
Oh boy, let's see what happens. Carl Burke has the advantage right now of restart, but that's about the only advantage he's got right now. I think he was expecting at least 1 or 2 more cars to stay out there. Here we come to a green.
Really stacking the box. Green flag is out, massive tire spin. And that might bring a black flag to Anderson because Anderson was a car length and a half ahead. Burke getting freight train on the high side. Frazier now trying to make the pass on the 37.
Let's see if the black flag comes or not. Burke falling like a rock. Anderson fighting with Frazier. Frazier to the inside. Side by side, 2 of the strongest cars all day. Anderson, Frazier, door to door here in the closing laps.
3 laps to go. Frazier on the bottom side. Can he try and finally find his way up to the front? He used the fast repair. He looks to be fast on the bottom. Major slide.
Yakima versus Hermiston, or Wenatchee right now. Hermiston on the back bumper. The 37 almost contact with Bill Ross Jr. Here comes Dan West Jr. He's in the wall. Contact with Ross. The juniors are involved.
Caution is out. Burke is in it. Brightsman just avoids it. And we're in green-white-checker territory.
Yeah, Brightsman called it in his pit interview as we check a look at the replay. He said we're going to exhaust all of our green-white checkers, and there's one of them. Here's one of them coming up.
And not only did you have Ross Jr. get loose there after the contact of the quarter panel, West Jr. just slipped and slided his way to the front fender.
Both juniors collide late in the going. And man, oh man, we are not done yet.
Many drivers scattered off to the grass, and now this is going to get really, really dicey, mind you. Carl Burke, by the way, is still in P5 on those old tires, so downside is he got involved in the wreck and lost the front nose. Lucky dog, Corey Walters, 10 cars now in the lead lap as a result here. Now this is going to get even more wild, Chris.
Yeah, and Justin, I think we got our answer. Anderson not getting that black flag. I think they may have taken in account how bad West's tires were. Maybe he spun the tires. You never know.
He looked like he absolutely did there, with how big of a tire squeal there was there.
So yeah, I think that might have been taken into consideration of why he never got the black flag. Man, this is going to be a crazy finish.
Dan West Jr. having to come down the pit lane because of that incident, by the way, after that contact. He's the only lead lap car down the pit lane this time. So West Jr. does use the faster pair in the pit stop sequence. As we are under caution coming to a GWC, Wesley, you're standing by.
On board now and grabbing a word with Jeff Stabnow in the LSR TV 25 Halt Spear co-entry. Jeff, what happened? You got collected in it, and it sounds like your night's done here at Richmond.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this restart, but I got a hurt motor, and I'm holding the steering wheel about 20 degrees to the right to go straight. So I'm not too optimistic about how it's going to end for me here, but we'll do the restart and see what happens.
Would you have ever thought that the race at Richmond would have ended up being the way that it has now, with now this crazy calamity finish and a long green flag runs as long as it's been, and just not definitely abnormal conditions tonight?
Yeah, you know, I really was surprised that we had that long green front at the flag at the run at the beginning. I really could have used a caution to fix that early damage I got, but once we got it fixed, the car was pretty much a hot rod again, and I don't think I had anything for Dan, but you know, we had a top 3 or 4 finishing us. You know, the cautions at the end, not surprised at all. It's just a single groove racetrack. Everybody's bunched up on the restarts.
Yep.
It surprised me if we don't get another wreck here before the end.
Well, he's done for, going to do a reset, but it's pretty much a done day for the 24 entry of Jeff Stabnow. He is done for, but also joining us is now Dan West Jr. in the 55. Had such a good run in the top 5 most of the way. You get collected, but there's still hope for you, Phil.
Well, I got obviously a fast repair, so my car's good, but I'm gonna take what I can get, but I don't think I'll be able to get towards the podium finish.
All right, we'll see what happens, guys. There's a couple of the Team LSR TV drivers. Stabnow, destroyed, crippled, battered, but it's going to finish the thing, but out of the hunt of the win. And Dan West Jr. says, I'm going to give it all I got, but I'm probably going to be out of the podium as well.
Well, they're back in P9 for him. As we get ready for the restart, 1 to go signal. Once again, green, white, checkered scenario. If we get the white flag, the race is official. Next flag ends it. If anything happens before they get to the white flag, we'll go to a second GWC. If there is a crash on the second GWC before they reach the white that time, race is official and will end under caution. To reset your field, Frazier and Anderson in row 1, Ross Jr. O'Hare in row 2, Burke and Paulus in row 3, Ottenbacher Stabnow row 4, West Jr. and White in row 5. Fasten up your seatbelts. It's about to get wild. Keep in mind, O'Hare has no front hood in P4. Frazier off and away. 2 laps to go from Richmond.
If Anderson can get down now, he might have a shot to get under Frazier. Yes, he will. He will be able to, as O'Hare clears Ross Jr. So here we go. It's going to be a one-on-one battle. Wenatchee versus Yakima, Frazier and Anderson. Here comes Caden to the inside, outside, looking on the back bumper of the 32, coming to the white flag.
Frazier trying to hold on for 1 more lap. Race is official. 1 to go from Richmond. Anderson looking to retake the lead after leading much of the second half of this event.
Off of turn number 2 for the final time. Anderson a little bit high. He caught the wall. And now he's going to have to dive it all the way in, and I don't think it's going to happen. Looks like the Miller Lite Patriotic Scheme is going 2 for 2 on the year.
Seth Frazier wins his 3rd race of the season and ends what was a dismal stretch of events after his back-to-back victories at Las Vegas and Rockingham. Finally breaks through.
Seth Frazier coming home, 3rd win of the season. Tell you, that Miller Lite scheme seems to have a good luck here in 2020. About the only thing that has good luck in 2020.
I was kind of wondering what would have happened there if Anderson didn't slap the wall. It might have been setting up for maybe a bump and run going into 3, but yeah, that didn't come to fruition.
Heck of a race for Seth Frazier. Had to march his way through the field, drive a damaged race car much of the run, and now is your winner at Richmond. Post-race interviews coming up after this. You're watching LSR TV for the Northwest Cup Series live from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Welcome back, everyone, for tonight's coverage of LSR TV on LSR TV of the Northwest Cup Series. Live in the virtual Richmond Raceway, Justin Prince alongside Greg Rentz, Chris Nunn, Wesley Outland, Charles Wooden in the director's seat. For Seth Frazier, after winning back-to-back races early on in the campaign and having several sub-top 20 runs since then, finally breaks through for the victory, beating Caden Anderson by 0.4 of a second. O'Hare, Ross Jr., Paulison rounded out the top 5. Autumnbacher, Dan West Jr., Carl Berg, Jeff Stabnow, and Chris White all finished on the lead lap inside the top 10 for tonight's action. Ricky Belcher coming away 11th. Corey Walters, Frank Harris, James Vining, Brad Carpenter, Kevin Smith, Sean Breitzman, Bruce Lee Weaver, Dan Lowther, Gary Nichols. Round of the top 20 with Daryl Tidrick, Scott Mann, and James Thurston all making it onto the grid today. That leads us into tonight's Clan Wars post-race show. Clan Wars, the official communication partner of LSR TV. Leslie standing by with their third place finisher first. That's Stephen O'Hare.
Hey, we're with Stephen O'Hare. Stephen, a good run for you there in the number 41, especially finishing the race with no hood. Discuss how Richmond was this afternoon.
I tell you what, I am drenched in sweat. It's ridiculous. It was a tough track, loose. I think, saw a ton of people wiggling. I was swatting bees in there all night long. It wasn't pretty. I felt like we had a decent long run car and was making some ground. And then I totally ruined that and got into the inside wall. So just got lucky.
Chris Nunn, I'll let you ask a couple questions because you were actually supposed to be the third place interviewer.
You actually covered it better than I did there. Pretty consistent run for you, Stefan. You got to be happy with a third place finish. Did you have any strategy though on those last green-white checkers, on the green-white checker?
I knew that I had some damage slight engine damage, so I wasn't really sure, Bill there in the 17, if he had got any damage or how bad it was. So I was pretty content on just surviving at that point. I felt pretty lucky to be, in the top 5, and that was the goal. I felt mid-run I had probably a 3rd place car. With that long green flag run, though, I didn't feel like I had the track position. So anyway, yeah, going into 1, I could tell that Bill was hurting. So I eased up a little bit. Figured I could get him on the straightaway, and 3rd was going to be a pretty decent finish to the day.
All right. Anybody going to give thanks to? Any sponsors you want to give shout outs to?
Certainly you guys, LSR TV. Again, it's really, really neat to go back and watch these races and have friends and family watch them. You guys do an awesome job. And then the Northwest Racing Series, this is really a great group of guys. I say it every week because I'm lucky enough to get podium finishes. So I'll take the platform to just say it's a great group of guys. It's a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to coming back after week 13.
All right, 3rd place finishers, Stephen O'Hare.
Thank you very much, Chris and Wesley. Standing by for 2nd place finisher, Greg Rentz is with Caden Anderson.
And Caden Anderson, another 2nd place finish here at Richmond, but it's not what you want. But man, this track really seems to fit your driving style.
Yeah, this is one of my more favorite tracks out of all the tracks that we visit to, so I'm pretty happy with this track and our finish tonight.
Caden, one thing we talked about a little bit before the race came in, you came out on this track with no practice whatsoever in this car. Qualified 15th. It took you less than 100 laps to get up and crack the top 5, and suddenly you were up there in the top 2 for a majority of it, leading almost the entire second half of that one. And Caden, this track really fitting you, like you said, but how long did it really take you to get a feel for the car after coming in with no practice?
We ran the truck series last Thursday, and so I kind of had some laps on this track before coming in tonight, but it was obviously with the truck. So it took me about a good 20 to 30 laps before I get a good feel of the car and start making my way through the field.
Well, it's a 2nd place here today. Next up, after week 13, and we're all done racing street stocks all week, we're going to be moving on to a big track Auto Club, which is similar to Michigan. So what are your thoughts moving into Auto Club here after just being in Michigan a couple weeks ago?
Auto Club is a really fun track. There's not a lot of lifting, and you're on the throttle for most of the race. So I'm excited. I can't wait to draft with some people and hopefully get another top 3 finish.
All right, another podium finish for you. Podiums both times here at Richmond. And you didn't get a chance to thank your sponsors on Thursday because you were having some technical difficulties, but you got a chance this time. So who you got?
Yeah, I want to give a thanks to Harvest Chevrolet, Custom Fab, and Hermiston Raceway.
At 2nd place, Caden Anderson. Great job.
Caden Anderson with a strong run, absolutely. But your race winner tonight, after a long drought.
Caden, thanks, buddy.
As Wesley says, thank you to Caden as well. Seth Frazier, after a long drought out of victory lane, back-to-back victories early on in the campaign, then had a rough streak. Then your first 2nd place finish in a long while. Seth, how's it feel to finally break back into victory lane?
Well, I think tonight it kind of fell in our laps. We've been close a few of the last races. We probably should have had a win at one of those races, but it was nice to get back. I think today we had a 2nd place car, maybe even a 3rd or 4th place car, but just the way everything fell, and it just worked out in our favor tonight, so it was fun.
On that point, let's talk about that battle for the win, though. Even with, as you said, 2nd or 3rd place car, had to fight hard to come away with the victory with Caden Anderson.
Yeah, no, it's always fun racing with Caden. It's nice to race people on here, that are quality enough drivers that you can race hard and get close to each other and trust the person you're racing with. So I enjoyed that. On the long run before that, I had damage, and I adjusted and put more rear brake into the car because of my damage. I was getting tight. So on the restart, I tried to kind of shoot the gap in between on my brake bias and still had too much rear brake.
Your 3rd of the season, one of the highest totals all campaign. Next race, though, is after week 13 at Auto Club with a brand new build, with adjustments to the tire model, with a new damage model, with adjustments to the dynamic track, with a lot of updates coming. Your thoughts of what you expect to see when we get back to racing?
I have no idea with iRacing. You know, it could be many things.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to trying something different. I like mixing it up and doing different things. So it's hard to say what it'll be like.
To correct myself, Darlington is the next race. Apologies there. But either way, it's still going to be a challenging race.
No, Darlington's an animal itself. So we'll just try to keep that fast repair and save it till late, kind of like we did tonight, and just survive.
Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Just thank Kathy out there for watching. Bart, Hector, Bonds, men, you guys putting on the show, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations on the victory.
Thank you.
That is Seth Frazier coming away with a victory tonight. That ties the most amount of victories in 2020 in the Northwest Cup Series with Sean Reitzman. Either way, entertaining race. First things first, I'll go to you, Greg. Your final thoughts.
Great racing, both in the Truck Series and the Cup racing here, Justin. This was one of the greatest weekends of racing that we've had in the Northwest Racing Series. Outstanding efforts both times by all of our drivers. So much fun to watch how it all unfolded. And man, once the incident happened with Dan West Jr. on pit road, that opened the race wide open. And remember, Seth Frazier was back in 18th at one point, methodically worked his way back up and got up to win the race. That just shows you how just because something happens early in the race does not mean you're out of contention for it, as long as you keep your cool. And Seth Frazier did exactly that. Great effort by him to come through the field, and that was an awesome performance.
A lot of things to think about, too, before the next race at Darlington. I'll go to you first, Chris. We talked about the new build a little bit. Lots of stuff coming to iRacing. One of the largest builds in iRacing history in terms of content.
Yeah, you're correct, and especially going into Darlington, where everybody gets that patented Darlington stripe with the new damage model and everything. I think we're going to see a completely different race than what we've been seeing before here on the tour. I don't know what you think about that, Justin, but it's like I said, that new damage model is going to take. I think it's going to take effect big time next week at Darlington, especially with the Darlington stripe.
And it was talk, you just hit upon it a little bit, Chris. We'll go to you, Wesley, for your final thoughts as well. With Darlington being the next race, talk about a challenging track to try and get used to a new entire feel of the car.
And you've got all those new downloads to boot for damages and all those cool things. So it's going to be very interesting what happens. This was a very, very unique race, guys, here tonight at Virtual Richmond for the Northwestern iRacing Cup Series. Only 2 or 3 caution flags in total. Of course, the big one, Calamity, on that last restart. But from there, it was a long green flag runs. Green flag pit stops came into play. Things that you normally do not see at Richmond, in short track racing for that matter. If you do see a green flag run, it's normally 50 laps. This one was very extensive. But anyhow, with this week 13 iRacing update, all the cool things that are coming here to LSR TV for the Northwestern Cup Series, Darlington will be fun. Richmond was fun. Hey, the new 80s Racing LSR TV Cup Series League is coming very soon. Details will be coming for that. We're all having a ball, and I think it was a great time here tonight.
I think it was an absolute ball, and I'm glad to be able to have the chance to work with all of you tonight. Thank you very much once again for everyone for tuning in for tonight's coverage of the Northwest Cup Series live from the virtual Richmond Raceway. We'd like to congratulate Seth Frazier once more on his 3rd victory of the season after coming away with a grand total of 9 lead laps. It was enough, though, to still take home the checkered flag. We'll see you next time when this series heads to the virtual track once again on June the 15th for Darlington Raceway action. The Darlington 136. 100 laps is currently the scheduled distance. We'll see who can tame the track too tough to tame, as Darlington calls it. With that, it's time to say goodbye. For our producer, Charles Wooden, for Wesley Outland in the pits, for Chris Nunn, for Greg Rentz, I'm Justin Prince saying so long, enjoy the rest of your night.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of 52 Media LLC and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.